What's new in CloudBees CI 2.516.1.28665? On July 29, 2025, CloudBees CI 2.516.1.28665 was released. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the changes that occurred in that release. Also on July 23rd of 2025, Jenkins LTS 2.516.1 was released. On July 24th, I did a video with Mark Waite about all of the changes in that release. If you're interested in that, there's a link to that video down in the description. If you've never taken a look at the release notes for CloudBees CI before, let me show you how to get there. We're starting at docs.cloudbees.com. Under Documentation, we'll select CloudBees CI, and then on the Documentation dropdown on the left nav, we'll select Release Notes. And what we'll see here is we have all the release notes for CloudBees CI. Now, before we take a look at the release notes for this release, let's take a look at this important block. If you skip versions when you upgrade, refer to previous versions of the release notes for any relevant known issues or upgrade notes. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means if we're upgrading to this latest version and we're running an older version, let's say we'll go ahead and go all the way back to 2.504.1.7. I would need to go ahead and go through all of the release notes since that release up until the release that I'm installing, taking a look specifically at the known issues and upgrade notes that I might need to deal with when I do that upgrade. As a CloudBees CI client, we recommend an assisted update to help make that process easier. There is a link down in the description about how to get help with an assisted update. Now, as we can see here for our latest release, 2.516.1.28665, we have two red boxes. We'll take a look at those as we go through the release notes. First off, we'll take a look at release notes for traditional platforms, and then we'll go take a look at modern cloud platforms and focus only on the items that are specific to that version. Let's go ahead and go into traditional platforms. First off, we can see that there is a security advisory associated with this release. You can open that up, take a look at it, and see all the changes that are associated there. There was really just two. Let's go back over to the release notes. First off, there is a critical issue. The My View tab bar property is now removed property in configuration as code bundles. What does that mean? Well, previously, there was a My View tab bar property in the Jenkins YAML for configuration as code. That property has been completely removed. So if you still have that property in your config as code bundles, when you start back up, it's going to fail. So you need to go in and remove that My View tab bar from your configuration as code bundles. Let's go ahead and scroll down into feature enhancements. What we're going to see here for feature enhancements is the CloudBees CI streamlined navigation and relocated global actions. Along with Jenkins LTS, again, I would recommend going to watch that video so that you can see all the changes that occurred in that release. The big story around this release is the UI changes that occurred. The header has completely changed, and also some of the items that used to be on the left nav from a global perspective are now also up in the new header. So what you want to do is go ahead and make sure you read all of these items here. And once you do the upgrade, you'll notice that many things have moved from left nav up to the header, and also the header has also shrunk a bit. One of the big things that you'll have to get used to is muscle memory. For example, if you've been used to going over to the left nav to click on Manage Jenkins as an administrator, well, now that Manage Jenkins is up in the header. Also in feature enhancements, there were a number of high availability HA enhancements. Let's go ahead and scroll down into resolved issues. Much like there were a handful of HA enhancements, there are numerous HA resolved issues. So if you've been running your controllers in high availability mode, there are a lot of changes and updates for high availability in this release. Let's go ahead and scroll down to the bottom. I want to call out two other items real quick. One is if you're using Bitbucket as your SCM, the plugin CloudBees Bitbucket Branch Source supports client certificate credential authentication. However, when you were attempting to connect to a Bitbucket server configured for MTLS, that cert was not being sent along with the request, and therefore you were getting HTTP error. That's been fixed. Also, the email extension plugin had issues with configuration as code. Things weren't being exported correctly. Again, all of that has now been fixed. Let's go ahead and go over and take a look at our release notes for modern cloud platforms. We see the security advisory just like we did. The critical issue, same. But here's the big item for 2.516.1. The minimum supported version for Kubernetes now is 1.29. Now that also means that OpenShift 4.15 is no longer supported. So if you're using Kubernetes 1.28 or earlier, you must upgrade to at least Kubernetes 1.29 or Red Hat OpenShift 4.16 in order to install this new release. Let's go down to new features. We can also see here that CloudBees CI on modern cloud platforms now supports 133. So much like we dropped support for 128, we now have a minimum requirement of 129. We now also support 1.33. Let's go ahead and go down into feature enhancements and call out the items that are modern only. If we go down, we'll see a custom context for configuration as code bundle retriever containers. The Helm chart now adds 2 properties to customize the Kubernetes security contexts. If we go down to Cast Controller Bundle Service allows loading credentials from Kubernetes secrets. In order to do this, you need to add a chart value of where your credential secrets live from a namespace perspective. And also here, we allow the skipping creation of Cast Controller Bundle Service configuration secret via Helm values. So much like the earlier one where we had some changes to the Helm, now we have some more changes to Helm. And finally, under resolved issues, we have one that is specific to modern cloud platforms, and that is the token review role-based access control permissions only created when needed. Again, going back to the Helm changes that we added, this was a fix where token review cluster role and cluster role bindings were always being created, whether they were needed or not. Now, token review is only created if it's needed. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach out to us on X at CloudBees. If this video was helpful to you, give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to CloudBees TV yet, why not? Take a moment, click on that subscribe button, and then ring that bell, and you'll be notified anytime there's new content available on CloudBees TV. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.